Thank you. Humans are kind of clever at some things, but we tend to mess things up quite a lot. So we invent technologies that allow us to record. So going back to the 1800s and the 1900s, we invented a way to record sound, whether it be music or natural sound or speech. And then we spend the next 100 years developing ways to make the technology better, but the listening experience worse. So just like in those bleach commercials where it says 99% of all household germs are killed by this particular product, and the truth is it's probably 100%, but they're not allowed to say it. It's the same with sound. 99.9% of all sound is compressed, which means by the time you get to listen to it, all of its range, its dynamic peaks and troughs are flattened out so that your ears don't have to do any work. And if you think of the ear as a muscle, that means your ears turn into couch potatoes, really. So one of the things that I'm lucky enough to do is I spend my life listening to environments. And there's this big debate about whether we hear a lot, but we've stopped the sort of ability to listen, stopped developing that ability to listen. So when I became interested in recording natural sound, by that I mean sound that isn't deliberately made by a human, I spent a lot of time trying to get really good recordings. And then maybe 10 years after I was doing that for about 10 years, and I suddenly realized that the recordings sounded good, but I was losing the emotional content. So what I realized was, when I was recording, I was hearing what I was recording, but I wasn't really listening to it. I wasn't allowing it to impose itself on me. I was listening to it as I wanted to hear it. So I started to get interested in different technologies, different ways to record. And this led me to using special microphones that I build as well. Contact microphones, hydrophones, which are for recording in water. So during this talk, I'm going to let the sounds kind of speak a lot for me. So I'm going to start off with a sound that you're all probably very familiar with, which is the sound of a bumblebee. What we can't do, unless we're incredibly stupid, is go and stick our head in a hive, a beehive. So it's not to be advised. So I've made microphones and placed them inside the hive. So what you're going to hear next is the sound of what bumblebees sound like, more like how they hear sound. So it's closer to their world rather than the quite pretty sound we hear when a bumblebee passes by. It's like a nice, pleasant sound. But bees are actually quite intense sonically. So that constant drone in the background that you can hear is a sound we don't often hear. We're used to that buzzing, which is the sound they make when they're being active. We're not used to this sound, which is a sound they use to signify that the hive is healthy. If the hive stops making that sound constantly, then it's about to collapse. So, and the interesting thing for me about getting this close into sound is learning how to listen over long periods of time. So, where, for example, an average person might listen to this for 30 seconds and think, oh, that's an interesting sound. I spent maybe 4 days listening to this hive. And if you spend that amount of time, you get sucked into that sound world. So you can hear how it ebbs and flows. Almost every second it's changing constantly. It's a natural composition. And for me, that's a really empowering way to listen, to spend time listening. But also what it does is, another thing that humans are really, really good at is separating ourselves from nature and forgetting that we are just another species on this planet. So for example, in sonic terms, the sounds that we emit constantly through electronic signals, through radio signals, are incredibly intense for these creatures. They can hear all the stuff that we can't, that we pump out into the world. So I'll move it on a bit. The next sound I'm going to play you is the sound of some ants eating an apricot. why not? You know, it's sometimes when I'm giving talks like this, there's a moment where I think, God, I'm insane. You know, I've gone mad, because I'm fascinated by this, but I realise that not everybody is really. But for me, it's a privilege to listen to ants eating an apricot for 8 hours. So these are special microphones. I say special. Basically, they're just contact microphones with guitar strings soldered to them, and then those are inserted into the apricot and around it, like a little cage. And it allows the sound to transmit through the wires onto the contact mic. So, what I was saying before about the way that us humans compress sound, it means that, unfortunately, even in this theatre, the mixing desks and the various bits of kit that are up there at the back will have compression built into them. So it's kind of impossible for me to play you exactly what that sound was. You have to be there listening on a really good audio recorder with really good headphones. And there's a lot of research into how much of our hearing we've lost over the last 5 or 6 centuries. And basically it's speeding up massively. Even though we're getting supposedly more sophisticated listening equipment all the time, the amount of music and sound we now hear that's compressed means that our ears are getting stupider and stupider. Especially since the invention of kind of record players and that kind of end of recorded sound. So when I go into the natural world and listen to these sounds, I get to experience a massive dimension that's infinitely larger than what I'm used to listening to at home on the TV or the radio or whatever. And when it comes to stepping outside of nature recording, because that's something I do a little bit of, but I'm more interested in sound worlds that are part of our everyday life. So, and as somebody who lives, if not in a city, near a city, obviously the sound world that we create as humans is kind of quite an interesting thing for me. But one of the other techniques that I like to use is this idea of getting underneath the surface of a place. I take that also to oceans and rivers, and I use hydrophones, which are special microphones for recording in water. And again, it's this peeling back of layers of environment. So I'll play you a quick example of some hydrophone recordings. Periwinkle, by the way, is a tiny little mollusk. So this is quite a small sound, obviously, because it's a tiny little mollusk eating a bit of seaweed. The fascinating thing about sounds in water, in aquatic environments, is they're actually the loudest environments on the planet, relatively speaking. If we could shrink down to the size of a water insect, or blow a water insect up to the size of us, the sounds that they emit and make are deafening. We don't even come close. I can't remember which band have got the Guinness Book record for the loudest concert at the moment. It'll probably be some band like Metallica or something. But there's a shrimp in the oceans called a pistol shrimp, which stuns its prey by snapping its body and its muscles closed. And if we could blow that sound up to our size, it would be the equivalent of standing next to 40 jumbo jets taking off. So, when it comes to these rock bands, thinking, yeah, they're not even close to a pistol shrimp, which I think is quite a healthy thing for them to understand, But yeah, so this idea of getting this close to natural sounds helps me when I come to listen to urban environments. It makes me realise that we are tiny, literally tiny, but we're also very large in terms of our sound pollution of the world. So some of the next sounds I'm going to play you are all frequencies we can't hear with our naked ears. They're there constantly. So I think the next slide I'm going to play you a sample of is a fence wire singing. And fence wires sing through either the traffic that's near them or the wind blowing through them. So I'll let you listen to a bit of that. Again, for me, this is all fascinating, but you're probably sat there thinking, this guy's mad. The thing to remember about this is that all the creatures nearby this fence can hear this all the time, and this is just one fence post. So. This is a car going past. I'm just getting him a volume button because it can get a bit. I mean, this fence happens to be quite a nice fence. It's quite. Well, I mean, it's quite a pleasant sound. Some fences rattle like hell, you know. And it is actually quite frightening that we're doing this. I mean, at some point the insects are going to rise up and kill us because they must be so annoyed at us for all these sounds we put out. One of the things about doing what I do, field recording, is it depends a lot on chance. So that was a bigger car. So this day I'd been in the Blue Mountains in Australia. I'd been recording all day in the rainforest there, and I was on my way back to where I was staying, and I just thought I'll have a quick go on that fence. It looks quite a nice fence. So you wouldn't believe my archive of fences. I've got about 10,000 fence recordings. It's worse than a train spotter. So I got my microphone set up and I was listening. I heard that sound, which that kind of weird pitching sound. I've never heard that ever before. And I managed to record for about 10 minutes, and my battery ran out on my recorder. No. And I went back 4 days in a row to that fence and never got that sound again, which was kind of frustrating because I only managed to record about 5 or 6 minutes of it. But it's also the thing that keeps me interested. You know, I've been involved in field recording for about 35 years, and I think if I could capture all the sounds I wanted immediately, and I knew exactly what was going to happen every time I put a microphone onto a fence, then I'd have stopped after a few years. But it's constantly changing. Yeah, I know you're all thinking, why didn't you? But now the next one, you thought a fence recording archive was bad. This is, I love staircases. I love recording the sound of staircases. Particularly external staircases, so fire escapes and because they reverberate, because they're often not very well anchored to the buildings, which you think a fire escape would be fairly well anchored to the building, but actually they're not. They move quite a lot. So I love recording staircases. So this is one recorded in Sheffield. It's actually on the side of the School of Architecture, and I was there for a conference on. I don't know if I should say this if it's going on how appalling architects are at thinking about sound. So this conference was all about sound and architecture. And to be honest with you, I got bored by lunchtime. It was just these lectures that are like 3 hours long. And it's like, you know. So I just went out and recorded this staircase. And I got really excited and rushed back in to give my talk. I said, I've just recorded a great staircase. And it was like, oh. Nobody was in the least bit interested. But I think this is... I'll hope you'll understand why this is such a beautiful sound, really. It's quite a musical sound. It's not unpleasant. this is all sound that everything we build gives off a sound, which is kind of quite humbling in a way. And as was mentioned in the introduction, I've done a piece for the Tate, and fortunately for that, I got to spend several nights in that building. This is just something I do in quite a lot of buildings, so I got to spend several nights in that building completely alone. And let me tell you, it is a really good art gallery when you're on your own. When it's full of people, as you've probably all been, it can be quite annoying going to the when it's full of people. But I got to spend like one night sat in the Rothko room just looking at the Rothkos and recording the sound of the Rothko room empty. And one of the things I was recording while I was there was ultrasonics. Ultrasonics are the sound beyond our range of hearing that we're giving off all the time. And again, that creatures can pick up, birds particularly pick up quite well on ultrasonics. So this recording I'm going to play is me stood in the middle of the turbine hall with an ultrasonic detector. And if you've ever wondered why there aren't as many birds in cities as there used to be, this might give you a clue as to why. That's just coming off one lighting circuit. It's quite an intense sound. I mean, I can listen to it for hours, but most people would get pretty annoyed with that after a few minutes. So you can imagine why birds don't bother flying into city centres much anymore. So I'm going to leave you with the opposite end of the spectrum, which is almost a recording of infrasound, because infrasound's really hard to capture. So that sounds below our range of hearing. So this last sound I'm going to play you is the sound of the world turning. So this is the infrasound that's given off by the world. Thank you.